Welcome to the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast, transforming the way people think and work so their organizations can thrive. Well, hi everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Ed Kless, and with me today is Reza Hoda. Reza, welcome to the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast.
Hi, Ed. Great to be here.
Well, first off, Reza, why do you do what you do?
Great question, Ed. So I guess I'm an accountant in practice. For those that don't know, I've been running my own practice for the last 12 years, and I'm still doing so. And what drives me now and what I get involved with now is to helping other accountants to build more successful, impactful, and profitable firms, because that's kind of the journey I went on. And I've been on a journey where I came from not really knowing what to do to kind of figuring it out. We're learning from coaches, mentors, and learning about marketing and about pricing and selling. And I feel that I'm in a place to give back, and I want to help other accountants to kind of shortcut their learnings to get their firms and practices to a place where they can make an impact in business owners' lives. So if I can touch accountants, then I know that they can make a greater impact and change their clients' lives, and that's why I do what I do.
And one of the ways that you said you've done that before we started recording is that you've really been doing some work with the results-only work environment. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So the ROWE is something that we implemented a couple of years ago. So I came across the book Work Sucks by Callie Resler and Jody Thompson, and I know you've had them on the podcast before. And it really, it blew my mind, and it made complete sense to me to say, why on earth did I not come across this before? And immediately I set about to implement the ROWE in our firm, and it was not something that kind of happened overnight, because the culture of the 9 to 5 is so ingrained in us and so ingrained in our working cultures, even though that in terms of our working practices, we have moved on a lot from where we were. Yet the 9 to 5 is a relic from the days of the industrial age, when we have to work in factories for work to get done. We had to actually be in a physical place of work in order to make those widgets between those hours in order for production to happen. Fast forward 100 plus years, we're in the information age, we're in the digital age. We no longer need to be in a place of work between 9 to 5 for work to happen. Yet our working practices are still fixated around that concept of work being undertaken within those hours in an office environment. So particularly with the nature of work that we do, as accountants, everything is digital. We've moved across to the cloud. It just made sense to be able to give our employees the freedom to work when, where, and how they want, as long as the work got done. Because at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters. And accountants have had a bad rep for billing by the hour and all that kind of thing. And thankfully, a lot of shift has been made by large numbers of accountants in practice to move away from the billable hour and actually move to value pricing, fixed pricing, etc. And the ROWE kind of follows in that vein, that it's all about the work and us actually focusing on results, outcomes, and solutions for our clients is what we should be doing. And that then leads us to how we motivate our teams, how we get our employees' objectives aligned with our firm's objectives, which are, of course, to make sure that we are delivering value for clients. So as far as I was concerned, it was just part of the jigsaw for us in our practice to get to a position where we are actually doing what we should be doing and adding value to clients. And the ROWE was a part of that.
Did you encounter any resistance when you were implementing the results-only work environment within your firm, either from the leadership team or from the folks themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not something that is a quick fix. It can't sort of happen overnight, even though in terms of the implementation, the way I implemented it and the way I encourage others to is to kind of just say, have a lead-in period and say, right, okay, we're going ROWE from this particular date, because you're either in a row or you're not in a row. So there can't be any halfway house. But in terms of the time it takes for it to set in, that does take time, because people are so fixated with the 9 to 5 that the perception that people have of their colleagues in the workplace is is all based around time. So all these judgments that people have in the workplace about, clocking in the hours, and the people who have the most face time are the ones that get promoted. And if you're leaving early for whatever reason, then clearly you're not committed to your job. And this all has an impact on the way that employees see each other and how they view ways to perhaps advance their career, or metrics as to whether they're doing well or not. Um, so yes, there was some, I wouldn't say resistance, but there was still this attachment to the old way. So although on the one hand, when I'm talking to firm owners to say, give your employees the freedom to work when, where, and how they want, suddenly they have resistance to say, I can't do that because, what if nobody comes to the office and, they don't clock on until midnight and work till 5 a.m. It doesn't happen. In fact, what happened was people carried on as they were, and all they did was because I gave them the complete freedom and I set out actually what we need to do in terms of, we just need to have availability for clients. So if clients are calling, we need to be available on the phones between normal working hours. And so what they did was they created a rota between them to say, okay, well, we'll ensure there's cover between the hours of 7 and 6. And there was some early birds who said, okay, I'll come in at 7 and I'll leave at 2. And another one said, I'll start at 8 and I'll leave at 4. And so slowly they kind of went to a flexible way of working, not a full row. But actually the pandemic was a good thing when it comes to row, because it's actually a silver lining of the pandemic, in that it accelerated people's thinking and people's move to realizing that work can happen without seeing your employees with bums on seats. So the whole point of a row is to focus on the work and to focus on the results. So rather than expecting your colleague just to be there because you feel like walking up to them and asking them a query, managers have to be a lot more intentional in terms of having those conversations with their direct reports to ensure that, perhaps, set aside some time in a diary, put a calendar invite in, and be really clear on what you expect and by when do you need it. And that way you're focusing on managing the work rather than managing the people. So it took time initially. The pandemic has helped to accelerate us to a fully kind of, I'd say, a row working environment now, because everybody is working remotely, and they're working when, where, and how they want, as long as the work gets done. So I think the pandemic has greatly helped, but it's it does take time inevitably.
Yeah, I will always remember the first time I saw Jody present, and there was some managers in the room, and they was one of them raised their hand and said, "My God, if we implement this, this means we're going to actually have to manage."
Absolutely. God forbid.
We're going to actually have to be clear about
Yeah.
what it is that we want.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Yeah.
we're capable of that, but wanted to pick up on something that you dropped in there, and that is the pandemic and the situation with COVID-19. Sounds like you've been using COVID-19 as really turning it into an opportunity for yourself and those that you work with to make this shift. So talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. So what I found is, and over the last sort of 6 or 7 months, we've actually had, in terms of the accounting firm I'm talking about now, our best results in terms of bringing on new business that we ever had in previous years. And it dawned on me that actually there's a big shift that has taken place in buyer behavior when it comes to not just other services, but in particular with accounting services. Whereas previously there was always this mindset that your accountant is generally local to you. And therefore, an accounting firm would have, I'm more UK centric here, but I'm imagining the same may be the case in North America as well. But that your accountant would be in, say, a 20, 30, 40-mile radius of where you are. And all the referrals that you got would be within your local network, with the professionals that you deal with other business owners that are in that network. But what has happened in the pandemic is that suddenly people have become comfortable with using technology like we are using now, like using Zoom calls and video calls. And because that's become quite widespread, it no longer is a requirement for your accountant to be local. So what we found is, because we had our kind of a marketing going in terms of our inbound content marketing, we had our digital assets out there, we were getting inquiries from all over the country, because we had clearly set out what our value proposition was, what our niche was, what our positioning statement was. And so long as you do that, clients don't care where you are. They only care that you are the expert that can help solve their problem. And if you position yourself like that, you will get inquiries from anywhere. So what I found is, and what I'm talking to accountants about now, is that you have this potential that you don't need to worry about niching or positioning your practice because you're concerned that you don't have X number of clients in this particular industry in your local area. Now you have a much wider geographic network available to you. And if you get your positioning on point, you will attract those inquiries and your practice will grow with the shift in buyer behavior that has occurred as a result of the pandemic.
Cool. And Reza, we have an exit question that we ask all of our guests, and that is, who is a hero of yours, and why are they a hero?
Great question. Great and tough question as well. I'd probably say just because it's front of mind, and in the last year or so, I think I've been consuming a lot of his content. Simon Sinek is someone that I consume a lot of content from in terms of um, everything to do with building high performing teams and how you get the best out of people. So I'd say at this point in time, yeah, I'd probably say Simon is one of my heroes.
All right. And lastly, Reza, how can somebody contact you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm quite active on there, so feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I have my own website as well, rezahoda.com. So either one of those places is where you can reach out to me.
All right. Reza Hoda, thanks so much for being a guest on the Sage Advice Podcast.
Thank you, Ed. It was a pleasure.
Review and subscribe by searching your podcast player of choice for Sage Thought Leadership Podcast.